Yo!
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jordan Peterson did a interview about forced monogamy. So I'm really curious about this. Forced monogamy? I guess that would be in these day and times how you feel like you're obligated to be with this one person. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't
know.
know.
I still feel like that's just the safest because you get so many when you date more than one person at a time. I mean, it's no attachment really because there's no commitment, and even when you make it into a committed relationship, it's still like not a marriage.
Yeah.
So it's technically
basically
you single.
I know we were talking about before, and I said it was talking about back biblically that it was said to get married because you can't sustain yourself. And in New Testament, it said get married because you can't sustain yourself. If you can't sustain yourself, get married.
I just think it's so it's way more confusing when you have multiples.
Oh,
Feelings get involved and
imagine you having 4 hood chicks. Ooh.
Stop it. 4 wives, 4 husbands. Who Lord?
Who ate the
Now,
last
how would that
tacos?
be?
Wit?
4 husbands.
Wit? No, they ain't nobody no 4 husbands. We can't eat. No, you disrespecting like Andrew Tate said. Play it, press and
Oh,
play.
it's okay to have 4
Give me your thoughts on the
wives.
modern dating market.
Well, I'm too old to really have any thoughts on it in some sense.
Not from a personal perspective.
Well, I don't understand at that level of detail. You know, I do know some things that are happening perhaps at universities where there are far more girls than boys or women than men. What happens in those institutions, this is what it looks like anyways, possibly. So females are hypergamous, which means they'll mate across and up hierarchies, socioeconomic hierarchy, but competence hierarchy is really at the bottom of it. And so when you set up a situation where there's far more women than there are men in a given domain, say where mate selection can take place, most of the men still don't do very well because most of them are still rejected by women. But a small minority of men do extraordinarily well if you think well means unlimited sexual access. And so what's happening in the universities is that a small minority of men have sexual carte blanche in some sense. And most men are in the same position that most young men are always in, which is they're in a state where they're not particularly desirable to women. And then the women, of course, are terribly frustrated because the minority of men that they would really like to have long-term relationships with, it's a seller's market for those men.
They're not settling down. That's the sex ratio hypothesis.
Yeah.
And the reverse happens, right? That you see whoever the more scarce sex is gets to determine the rules of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So the men, if they are in high demand because there's short supply, you get more short-term mating.
Yeah.
You get an increase in relationship dissatisfaction from women. And when the reverse happens, you get more dates before sex. You get more long-term mating. You also get more sexual violence in that situation as well, when there is a surplus of men and a scarcity of women. I think there's
You also get far more unstable societies. You know, I was pilloried a few years back for my comments about enforced monogamy because they were taken out of context and twisted in exactly the way that things like that get twisted now. But
what did you mean by that?
I mean that one human universal is the construction of societies to both mandate and reward monogamy. And there's all sorts of reasons for that. It's because it's the best long-term solution, fundamentally. But one of the reasons for that is that when women are scarce, men get violent.
That's it.
Now, you know, that was read to say, well, I thought that this society should be distributing women to undeserving men, which is, of course, absolutely and utterly preposterous. And
When he said when women get scarce,
Yeah.
men get violent?
Yeah,
Really?
absolutely. Y'all, he thin out. Huh.
Where? I mean, how? Where is
Let's
this?
kick in a
Where's
door.
the record of this in the world?
Let's kick in a
Like,
door.
where would we find out more information about this? Because that's interesting. I mean, I never knew that.
Yeah, men don't do well, man. So if it's just a group of guys for long periods of time and ain't no women involved, your mind start getting idle. I ain't talking about no weird stuff, but you women are highly needed.
I see.
Guys can go to themselves and be themselves for a minute, but you gotta come back to some women unless you got some other preferences, but
Okay. I see. I understand.
or you start getting I never forget, man. I was at a barbershop and this guy was talking about, man, all we need to do is be able to come together and unite. And imagine if there was no women in the world and it's just all men. It's all men. We could roam, we could walk around with our shirt off, and then everybody in the barbershop was like, get out. Yeah,
like
nah,
maybe you,
I'm
but
good.
not us.
I'm good.
Okay, that's funny.
Because then what happens next is, sure.
Stop it. Okay, that's all I need to know. That's
Bears
fine.
no relationship whatsoever to anything I ever said or thought, or anything anyone sane would ever think or say, or has ever thought or said. Because I don't know anyone politically ever who was insane enough to think that the state should distribute women to men. Like, that's just never happened. So to be accused of that belief, and then for that to, be put forward as a credible representation of what I thought was just one of the preposterous things that has happened to me.
It's an unfortunate name, enforced monogamy, because it's a term from anthropology, right? But what you mean is culturally celebrated monogamy, culturally and norms that are supporting people and raising that up as an institution.
Supporting and punishing, both, but mostly supporting. I mean, the punishing is that there's a moral disapproval applied to, say, cheating, right, to adultery, to especially running around behind your partner's back if you're married, particularly that. But even if you're in a long-term stable relationship, it's like, well, that's all enforcement. It's not police with jackboots, but that's not the only type of enforcement. It's not the only type of sanction or threat or punishment or disappropriation or disgust or contempt or shame or frustration or disappointment, all of those things. And all of that because monogamy is a good long-term solution, but in some sense a troublesome short-term solution if you have other options. Then,
because you do have some guys on here that have many options, and then it becomes a problem for them. Like, it's fine in the beginning, but it's a problem for them because they used to running the streets. They used to hitting around and trying to go to the one woman thing. Just ain't gonna work. It ain't meant for everybody to get married, and that's the truth. I don't recommend that. And it's not meant for everybody to be out here to be having sex without married. But it's still.
So then, what's the antidote? Because if it's not meant for everybody to get married, but those who don't get married are out here sleeping around, and God is not happy with that, what's the antidote?
I would say it, but it goes too long. But yeah,
getting married.
But some guys it just ain't. And I knew guys that just wasn't. And if they got married, it just wasn't in them. It wasn't in them. It wasn't in them to do that.
So what's the resolve? That's what I want to know. What do you do?
I don't recommend.
If it's not meant, then that's when you have to go to.
Because usually when you need a lot of women, I'm tired. Whenever you just can't settle down, it's because you probably already have some kind of sexual issue that goes way far back.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then you will want to be in a relationship with a woman, because if that's the case, then
some do.
I get it.
All of those elements of social support, let's say, need to be put into place. And that is it, as far as I've been able to determine by looking at the anthropological literature. Norms surrounding monogamy are a human universal. There are exceptions, but there are very specific situational reasons for those exceptions.
Get back in focus. So that was interesting. Forced monogamy, and I do believe that not every man can be can practice being monogamous in a relationship, and it to a degree, to some people it is forced. And if it's forced to you, you don't need to be doing it,
because it keeps trying to focus on you. That's why it's blurry for me now.
And if
it is.
I was gonna say, if it's being forced, it's probably not meant for you, or you got to go through a series of some things have to change in you for that to be meant for you. But I don't recommend. I've known people go straight and I think things just gonna change with marriage, and next thing you divorce because you've been in them streets.
Yeah, I never thought about it being a forced monogamy. I just stop people in monogamous relationships is something that you truly want to be in.
Yeah.
But I understand how it can be hard.
Absolutely.
But women too. There are women who don't want to settle down. There are women who want to have more than one man. And I never thought about multiple husbands.
I've never seen an alpha male.
How about that? Having multiple husbands.
All right, y'all.
Anywhere
we
where
appreciate
that's
y'all
really
coming to the channel.
I'm gonna look
that
that
is
up.
disgusting. Like Andrew Tate said, it is so that is gross to me.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, look it up. She ain't gonna
Tell
do
me,
nothing.
guys.
Look it up.
Tell me, guys. Okay, if I put it in my phone, I'll remember.
Y'all look at me.
Okay, let's see.
All right.
Let's put it in your phone, sister.
We'll see y'all in the next one. We're about to send them on out.
All right, guys. Love you. See you in the next video.